Good evening. Welcome to the Saturday Evening Report. I'm John Baker.
And I'm Kathy Zarowski. 16 volunteer firefighters accused of setting 59 fires for thrill and excitement over a 6-year period were arrested on arson and related charges Thursday, police said. Pennsylvania State Police arrested suspects Fire Chief Joseph Zagorski and 2 other officers of Eagle Volunteer Host Company 1 and 8 juveniles who were junior members of the fire department. Police said the arson targets were a large mill that suffered $300,000 in July 1978, 2 warehouses, and a wood products plant. Charges against the firefighters included arson, conspiracy, criminal mischief, conspiracy to corrupt minors, and causing or risking a catastrophe. President Reagan blasted striking truckers for trying to change laws by committing murder. The states that were hard hit by the shootings, burnings, and stonings called out the National Guard to patrol the nation's highways in this 6th day of terror. In reacting to a demand by the truckers for rollbacks on laws, rising fuel, and highway use taxes, Reagan condemned the violence and said that there'll be no backing down. Since the Independent Truckers of America called the strike at midnight last Sunday, 1 truck driver has been killed and 87 other people have been injured in shootings and other strike-related violence.
A powerful explosion from a car bomb ripped through a building in Palestine Liberation Organization office in West Beirut today, causing many deaths and injuries, police said. The bomb also ripped open the front of the Libyan news agency across the street and shattered glass 2 blocks away. Ambulances and civilian cars carried the injured through the streets of West Beirut as Lebanese army troops tried to clear a path for the vehicles. Police at the scene said there was many dead and wounded, but no accurate account is immediately available. U.S. and Israeli officials agreed Thursday to clarify boundary lines between their forces in Lebanon, but Israeli attempts to blame the United States for the confrontation between Marines and Israeli forces were rejected. U.S. spokesman John Reed says Israeli officials in Beirut were told the Marines will stay where they are, backing up the actions of a Marine who Wednesday stopped 3 Israeli Centurion tanks that were approaching Marine lines. Mr. Reed said the apparent misunderstanding on the location of the U.S. lines was resolved. Israeli radio and U.S. officials concede the Israeli tanks had been in Israeli-controlled territory when they were stopped. Marine Captain Charles Johnson said in a news conference he had to climb aboard an Israeli tank and point his loaded handgun into the air and to stop the tanks. He said, "I told him if he came through, he'd have to kill me first."
Secretary of State was to hold a meeting yesterday with Chinese Defense Minister Zhang Yiping, possibly to set up a visit to Peking by Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger this year, diplomatic sources said. U.S. officials announced the previous unscheduled meeting between Mr. Schultz and the new Chinese defense chief after 2 days of intensive talks between Secretary of State and Foreign Prime Minister. Mr. Schultz is to hold 2 more days of talks with the Chinese leaders. The meeting with Defense Minister Zhang Yiping and talks of a Weinberger visit are indications of U.S. attempts to promote a military partnership with China. Officials are looking Space Shuttle Challenger after a faulty main engine was removed. The officials say a 3rd ground test firing is unnecessary. Mark Hess, spokesman for the Kennedy Space Center, said a definite launch date would not be set for several days.
And while challenging Moscow to a peace race, Vice President George Bush said Thursday that he asked America's European allies to propose alternatives to U.S. negotiation strategies and arms reduction talks with the Soviet Union. Bush said that the leaders of West Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands tried to suggest new arms limitation approaches other than President Reagan's zero option. The zero option calls for elimination of all ground-launched U.S. and Soviet medium-range missiles. Karen Carpenter, a soft rock star who teamed up with her brother in the 70s, is dead at the age of 32. Miss Carpenter, suffering from anorexia nervosa, died in a hospital emergency room Friday, less than an hour after her parents found her on the floor of their home in Los Angeles. Paramedics who treated Miss Carpenter said she was in full cardiac arrest when she was discovered. Several physicians and psychiatrists specializing in the treatment of anorexia nervosa in Southern California agreed Friday the disease can cause heart damage. However, a coroner spokesman said it is not known yet if the singer's disease contributed to her death. Ms. Carpenter suffered for 2 years from the disease that results in drastic weight loss. An autopsy failed to disclose the cause of death pending further tests.
A storm that buried the Southwest under 19 inches of snow barreled toward the Midwest today. Police reported increased violence in the area linked to cabin fever. Panicky shoppers raided grocery shelves for staples. At least 43 people have been killed in a week of storms. Mount St. Helens exploded twice Thursday, spreading ash up to 100 miles away and setting mud down its slopes, ending the volcano's longest quiet period since its May 1980 eruption. Stephen Brantley of the U.S. Geological Survey in Vancouver said, "These steam and ash emissions have occurred intermittently since 1981 and do not indicate an immediate eruption."
And a strike by school bus drivers, custodians, and boiler operators canceled classes for 207,000 Philadelphia public school students Thursday. The 4,000 workers, members of the International Brotherhood of Firearm and Oilers, walked off the job Wednesday because of a lack of progress in contract negotiations. They had been working without a contract since September 1st. Teenage drug use fell sharply between 1979 and 1982, according to a government report. But cocaine consumption by older Americans rose markedly. High school senior marijuana usage decreased from about 10 to 6%. Cocaine use by people over 26 years old rose from 0.9% to a little over 1%. Smoking and drinking among older Americans, however, dropped, while the use of non-medical stimulants held at 0.5%. And Kathy, will the city of Lackawanna close or will it survive?
Well, Governor Cuomo's emergency task force today will study a plan aimed at keeping Bethlehem Steel Corporation's Lackawanna plant in the steelmaking business. It is the second meeting here of the governor's panel, formed in the wake of Bethlehem's December 27th announcement that will phase out its local steelmaking operations this year. The action would eliminate the jobs of 3,900 current workers and another 3,400 on layoffs. The emergency task force, made up of representatives of government, labor, business, and the Erie County Industrial Development Agency, will meet in a closed session in the state office building. Governor Mario Cuomo said Thursday announcement of $1.9 million in federal aid programs for the Niagara Frontier is a good beginning. But Cuomo is seeking approval of the full $60 million package that he requested 2 weeks ago. The governor also asked the federal government to match the $5 million in retaining money that the state has already budgeted for jobless Western New Yorkers. The aid package will finance research into possible use of the Bethlehem Steel plant in Lackawanna.
And officials of both the State Department of Corrections and the officials of mental health met in Albany Thursday to discuss procedures for making buildings on the campus of Gowanda Psychiatric Center available for prison inmates. A mental health agency spokesman said the transition will probably require numerous meetings over the next few months, but no major problems are anticipated. No final decision has been reached on which buildings will be used. Don Temple of Linwood, Washington, has had his hands on a lot of garbage lately. It seems Temple has been searching through mounds of trash in hopes that he finds his $10,000 Washington State lottery ticket he apparently threw away. Temple, who is married and a father of two, purchased the $1 ticket because he had a premonition. He admits that he did not read the instructions and thought his ticket was a loser. Temple and his wife, Jeannie, have the permission of Northwest Garbage Company to examine a dumpster at their transfer station. If he is able to find the ticket, Temple said he will use the money to buy a bottle of champagne, take his wife out to dinner, and pay off some bills.
In Dunkirk, James Hall of 633 Canary Street was reportedly robbed today while at the Harbor Inn on Lakeshore Drive in Dunkirk. After Hall had laid the change from a $20 bill on the bar an unidentified man took Hall's cigarettes, put the money in his pocket, and took off with a female acquaintance. Although the man was unidentified, Hall did manage to get the license plate number of the fleeing vehicle. Approval of a SUNY-wide mandatory athletics fee is pending approval according to a SUNY administrative source. The fee, which is aimed at upgrading the SUNY intercollegiate program, would grant NCAA Division I power to SUNY schools according to a Buffalo News report. The fee would be separate from the mandatory activities fee that SUNY students now pay. Mark, what happened in the weather this week?
Well, this week in the weather, the season's biggest snowstorm hit the Midwest, dropping a foot of snow and, along with 50-mile-per-hour winds, caused the wind chill factor to drop to a 40 below zero in northern Minnesota. Strong winds and heavy rains whipped through the east, where the mercury rose to a record warm, causing flash flood warnings through much of southern New England. The death toll from the week of snowstorms in the plains and Midwest and strong rains and tornadoes in the south reached 32. On the west coast, hurricane winds and drifting snowstorms stranded hundreds of motorists in the hills overnight, while drenching rains hit the southern California area. Currently, let's take a look at the board over here. Currently, the temperature is 23 degrees. We have a high of 23 degrees, which is the same as the current temperature. The low is 9 degrees. We have winds are calm. The barometric pressure is 30.52 and rising, and we have a trace of accumulation on the ground. For the long-range forecast, over here we have cloudy and 40% chance of snow by morning. Sunday is going to be pretty much the same. We're going to have flurries through the day. The high is going to be about 25 degrees. And same is going to be on Monday. Through the week, it's going to be about 10 to 15 degrees with snow flurries on and off. Well, that's about it for sports. Lou, how did we do in the Super Bowl this week?
Well, I can honestly say I made a better prediction than the general manager of the station's prediction, who, by the way, picked Miami. Washington took the Super Bowl trophy back to the Capitol after defeating Miami 27-17. The first half was highlighted by two big plays from Miami. A pass from David Woodley to Jimmy Cefalo was good for 76 yards and a touchdown. After Joe Theismann tied the game up at 10 with a touchdown pass to Alvin Garrett, Miami kickoff returner Fulton Walker romped 98 yards for a touchdown to put Miami ahead 17-10 at halftime. The second half, though, belonged to John Riggins and the Washington Redskins. Down 4 points and on the Miami 43, Washington decided to go for 4th and inches. John Riggins broke through the Killer Bees defense to score a touchdown and put Washington ahead 20-17. Late in the fourth quarter, Charlie Brown caught a touchdown pass from Joe Theismann for added insurance. John Riggins earned the game's MVP honors, rushing for 166 yards on 38 carries, and he even caught a pass for 15 yards. Not bad considering Riggins quit football 2 years ago. The Buffalo Bills hired a new head coach Tuesday, 38-year-old Kay Stevenson. In 1967, Stevenson won a job as a free agent quarterback with the San Diego Chargers, and a year later was traded to Buffalo. He then moved on to Atlanta and Oakland before retiring as a player in 1970. From there, he went to work as an assistant at Rice University, a high school athletic director, a player coach in the now-defunct World Football League, and then the Los Angeles Rams as a quarterback coach under Chuck Knox. Good luck, Kay. 3 Bills players have this to say about their new coach, though. The problems we have won't go away with the hiring of a new coach, said guard John Borchar. Defensive lineman Fred Smerlas was contacted in Hawaii, preparing for the Pro Bowl. Quote, Kay is going into the job with a handicap, like a swimmer with handcuffs. It's going to be hard to win unless he gets a full commitment from the front office. And linebacker Shane Nelson had this to say, the players have to live with Chuck's decision to leave, but Kay is better than bringing in a guy from the outside. Nazareth left Fredonia last week, winning by the skin of their teeth. The Golden Flyers did a good job in shutting down Fredonia's inside game and leading scorer Chris Huey. Nazareth won the game 70-66. The leading scorer for Fredonia was Norm Sweet with 16 points, and freshman Fred Thompson came off the bench to pour in 13 of his own. The loss was the Blue Devils' 4th straight setback. However, on Tuesday, Fredonia upped its record to 7-9 after the drubbing of Roberts Wesleyan 83-50. Tonight they're away at Buffalo State, and the Blue Devils' next home game is Wednesday versus Houghton. The NCAA Top 10 is out, and North Carolina finished the week by winning its 15th straight game against Citadel last night. Nevada Las Vegas is the only undefeated team in the poll, and they'll play host to Cal Irvine tonight. Virginia with Big Ralph Sampson and Othell Wilson crushed Duke today, 105-84. St. John's dropped its record Tuesday night, losing to Pittsburgh by 1 point, and Memphis State is losing right now at halftime to Tulane. UCLA nipped Washington State Thursday and plays host to Washington tonight. Bobby Knight's Indiana Hoosiers have crushed Minnesota in a Big Ten battle, and rounding out the top 10 is Houston, Missouri, and Arkansas. Today was the last home swim meet of the season for Fredonia State as they crushed the Niagara Purple Eagles 67-34. The Blue Devils will be losing Ted Gentner and John Geyer to graduation after the season. Ted went out in style as his relay team of Matt McCoy, Kevin Porteous, Tom Quick, and himself won big on the last event of the day. Chuck Knox was hired as the head football coach at Seattle. The Atlanta Falcons signed Dan Henning as their head coach, and John Makovic, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback coach, was named the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Theismann will be honored tomorrow as the National Football League's Man of the Year in the Pro Bowl in Hawaii. 40,000 Miami Dolphin fans turned out to welcome home the Super Bowl losers. I guess they didn't see the game. Pittsburgh Panther quarterback Dan Marino is thinking about going to the United States Football League instead of the National Football League. Dan was the first pick of the new league, and he feels he'll just get as much money and a starting quarterback job. High school football dynasty Moeller in Cincinnati can't find any more teams to play in football simply because they just don't lose. Fred Brown of the Seattle Supersonics says the quality of basketball has gone down because there just aren't as many smart players as there used to be. University of Washington has been publicly reprimanded by the NCAA for 3 rule violations in its summer basketball recruitment of a player. Billy Martin is back as the manager of the New York Yankees for the 3rd time. Maybe Steinbrenner will give him a chance this time. And Fernando Valenzuela is asking for $1 million again this year from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Last year he had to settle for a mere $350,000. And boxer Roberto Duran has come out of retirement for a 2nd time by beating Pepino Cuevas in 12 rounds. Tennis pro Bjorn Borg, 5-time winner of Wimbledon, has announced his retirement. Ivan Lendl defeated Guillermo Vilas Sunday in a World Championship tennis match between the two. Andrea Jaeger crushed Hanna Manlikova 6-1, 6-3 in the Avon Cup tennis finals, and Bob Gilder sank a birdie putt on the 8th playoff hole at the Phoenix Open to win a $63,000 first prize. And Pat Bradley won the LPGA Mazda Classic at Deer Creek, Florida, Sunday, giving her first win since 1981. And my commentary is on Paul Bear Bryant. He died last Wednesday of a massive heart attack at the age of 69, only 5 weeks after announcing his retirement as the Alabama head football coach. Since he secretly suffered mild heart problems and a stroke several years ago, the man who often seemed a lion and craggy Southern god had been keenly aware of his mortality. Courage in medicine had carried him to that 315th milestone victory and beyond. Bryant was humble. He never blamed an official for losing a game. He never publicly abused a player. When Alabama lost, if there was fault to be found, it was his. After a memorable goal line stand against Penn State, Bryant paid his respects to his players by quietly taking off his trademark houndstooth hat and lowering his eyes as they passed. On the back page of Thursday's Crimson White student newspaper, a color picture showed Bear Bryant's famous houndstooth hat on a University of Alabama issued crimson chair. He was honored 2 different ways. Before Super Bowl 17, there was a moment of silence for him. And Tuesday, the United States Senate voted to rename the Talladega National Forest to the Bear Bryant National Forest. The Bear will be a legend in coaching forever, and he will be missed by millions. That's the sports. Now back to John.
Thanks, Gulu. Very good. And with our news quirk today, it seems as though an Erie County employee upset that National Gas Service had been shut off in his home because an unpaid bill had been charged with throwing a brick through the front window of the utilities headquarters. Kenneth Richardson wrote his name on the brick to let authorities know who was behind the protest. Richardson paid the $250 bill Thursday afternoon, but gas service to his home was still not restored. Richardson was arrested on a criminal mischief charge early on Friday at a downtown bar where he was sipping a beer and giving an emotional speech on current problems. And that's our news quirk for today. Kathy?
This week's campus events at Fredonia State will include the Planetarium Show at 8 p.m. tonight and tomorrow at 3 p.m. in Jewett Hall. The featured film is Loneliness Factor, a film that theorizes the death of supergiant stars billions of years ago and the possibility of life on other planets. Also tonight, a summer music benefit at 8 p.m. in King Concert Hall. Call the box office for tickets or purchase them at the door. On Monday, February 7th, the Fredonia State Jazz Ensemble will give a free show at the Campus Center at 8 p.m. An ice cream social will follow the event. On Tuesday, February 8th, is Journey to Jazzland at 9:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. in King Concert Hall. Tickets are available at the door. This is a part of the Youth Series concert by Fredonia Jazz Ensemble. And February 9th is a night of music video at 8 p.m. in the Campus Center. Admission is at the door. This event is sponsored by WCVF Radio and WNYF. To conclude the week, on Friday, February 11th, it's Wing Night with acoustic guitar player Marty Bear at 8 p.m. in the Campus Center. This event is presented by Spectrum. This concludes the Saturday Evening Report. For John Baker, Mark Norris, and Lou Augusto, I'm Kathy Zarowski. Have a good evening.
We're here with Todd Lynn, the president of Cultural Events Commission. Todd, how's this year's Winterfest going?
It's looking really good. For a little bit of snow we have, we've only had one or two events, I guess, canceled. Cross country was, I think, the only thing that has been canceled officially. Still got the sleigh rides going on. We're trying to do snow sculptures. It's coming along pretty good.
How does this year's Winterfest compare to last year's Winterfest?
I think really good. Last year was sort of the beginning year. It's our second annual. It's getting a little bit better every year. You know, the only thing we could ask for is a little bit more snow.
You like one of the founders of this?
No, I've been helping Shirley Scott, who's our Assistant Director of Student Activities, who's the one who really got it started last year, and she keeps going with it and getting it bigger and better every year. And anyone who's around, just stop by the info office and offer to help on this or any other event that we've got. Homecoming, Parents Weekend, Fredonia Fest, Labor Day Fest. We need help on all of them.
Base at 3-4 elevated. Okay, the first shot was around the rim and out. Karen Schuster gives to Margot Ratty. Monson gives to Linda Bates, guarded by Rouleau. Bates drives.
It's camera 2, don't worry.
Welcome to the Saturday Evening Report. I'm Kathy Zarowski.
And I'm John Baker. The weather took a nasty twist today as record-breaking blizzard blasted the east with 35 inches of snow that piled even higher today. The storm shut down federal government, paralyzed New York City, and officials were powerless to keep up with it. At least one person was killed and thousands of travelers were stranded. A record 15 inches of snow buried New York City and 3 more inches arrived today. The sanitation department assigned 2,000 men to work the night and sent 350 salt spreaders and 1,000 plow trucks through the city streets today. All major airports along the northeastern corridor were shut down, along with schools and businesses. President Reagan was forced to scrap plans for a weekend at Camp David, Maryland, and remained in the White House. Steve Capriola in Charleston, West Virginia, a meteorologist, said, "I guess it was bound to come. We've had it good for so long." West Virginia State Police Robert Bauer reported 35 inches of snow in Glengarry, and deep drifts forced miles of highways to close. Power outages came in Charleston area where the National Weather Service was forced to use its emergency generator. The storm dumped a record 21 inches of snow on Philadelphia and forced Interstate 95 to close. Winds up to 60 miles per hour kicked up the dangerous curtains of white snow in Boston, creating a whiteout and piled drifts 5 feet high. The New York storm was upgraded to a blizzard Friday when its 3 airports, LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark, were closed. 3,000 travelers were stranded at Kennedy's terminal alone. One New Yorker grumbled, "Some people don't have to travel around in it, but I do. It's not pretty." Mark, can you tell us a little bit about more about the storm that happened
Sure
today?
can. A cold front moved through the mid and northeastern sections of the country, dropping 3 to 5 inches of snow every hour. The storm started at about 11 p.m. on Thursday and ended at midnight on Friday. This will leave many people digging out through the weekend. Although the Northeast has mild temperatures now, another cold front is moving in from the west, but isn't expected until late Monday. I'll have more for you later on in this newscast. Kathy?
56 positions at Fredonia State University will have to be cut by August 1983 in order to comply with Governor Mario Cuomo's budget cuts for the 1983-84 school year. Some 8% of the non-teaching workforce will be laid off as of April 1st, 1983. The instructional staff will be laid off permanently as of August 1983. President Dallas K. Beal said, "The magnitude and timing are twin impacts that we have never experienced before." However, Beal added that there's little evidence that Fredonia has been treated unfairly. The reductions are pretty much across the board with the exception of correctional facilities. The state has also suggested voluntary furloughs and early retirement to save funds. Those who retire early will have 3 years added to their service record. Along with the 56 positions that must be eliminated, Fredonia State will also ease 14 positions that is held vacant at the state's request, thus bringing the total to 70 positions that will be cut. Because of the position cuts, Fredonia will also have to cut curriculum because of a lack of instructors. The Resources Committee is reviewing the curriculum at Fredonia and will make recommendations to Beal on what areas on campus are expendable. The programs cut will be those whose demand has dropped substantially. Beal stressed, "We first must fund our priorities, and our first priority is instruction." Beal also said, "I'm not making any value judgments, but when we take 10% cut of our human resources, I wonder why Bundy Aid wasn't cut." Along with making cuts, the Cuomo administration is also adding extra costs to the student. Beal said that while New York will save $100 million through cuts, it will gather an additional $35 million by increasing the cost of education. This will come by increasing tuition $250 and $150 for dormitory rent. Also, all students will be charged a $25 computer fee. Out-of-state residents will have to pay $1,400 in increased tuition, as well as the dormitory and computer fees. Beal also expressed concern that the budget for Fredonia State did not take into account the expected increase in enrollment next semester. Beal concluded, "It looks hopeless, but it isn't. We still have about 90% of our resources."
And the College Council discussed the state budget for the SUNY system Wednesday. The status of admission applicants for next semester and the growth of Fredonia State's computer program were also discussed. President Dallas K. Beal delivered the news on the budget for the college, knowing that the governor and the Division of Budget had finally given the college more control over their own affairs. He said, however, that this flexibility had been given to state colleges only for the purpose of managing the deficit and employee terminations. When one member of the college questioned the constitutionality of giving more Bundy aid to private colleges, Beal responded, "I don't want to get into a battle with the independent colleges, but we might have to lead in that direction." Beal said that this Governor Cuomo modifies his budget within the 30-day period he is allowed and saves more positions. The college has procedures to rehire these employees before they are discharged after the spring semester. William S. Clark, head of the admissions, reported to the council the status of applicants for admission in the coming year. Clark said that Fredonia is the first alternate choice for turning away from private schools because of their high costs. We have 1,000 more applicants for the next year than last year at this time. Clark also noted that the number of transfer students was up 35% last year, and we're heading for a very large transfer application this year. Council members noted that admissions for the fall semester would increase despite the fact that faculty and other positions were being cut. Dr. Frederick D. Ullman of Computer Services delivered a report on the status of computer programs. Ullman said that because of the large use of their present computer system would be obsolete by 1988, about the time the college's 7-year contract with Burroughs ran out. He also noted that at present time he had no answers to the problems facing the computer center and the future of the program.
Governor Mario Cuomo's recent budget proposal outlines a reduction program which would lay off about 8,000 state workers for savings of about $150 million. Save $54 million through early retirement incentives. Proposed consumption and user fees would yield about $485 million. Fees and taxes include cigarettes at 5 cents per pack and 50 cents per carton, while a driver's license would be about $10. Cuomo also cited a spending cap, which would reduce state spending from the present 8.7% to about 8.3% this year and gradually to 8% by 1988-1989. The proposed percentage decrease will save over $1.17 million over current spending rates. The Israeli cabinet voted 16-1 Thursday to demand the resignation of Defense Minister Ariel Sharon, but the former general refused to step down, plunging the government into a perplexing crisis. During the cabinet's meeting, a hand grenade exploded within 200 yards of the meeting room in the midst of demonstrators from the Peace Now movement who had been calling for Mr. Sharon's ouster. 1 man was killed and 9 others were wounded. Mr. Sharon was the only cabinet member to vote against the resolution to accept the recommendations of the Judicial Commission that investigated the killings of hundreds of Palestinian civilians in the refugee camps in Beirut last September. A senior official later explained the situation to reporters. Legally, it does not mean the firing of Sharon. The cabinet cannot fire him. Sharon is still defense minister. But the officials said it was clear that the cabinet's intention was to secure Mr. Sharon's resignation. He predicted the matter would be resolved in a matter of days. Prime Minister Menachem Begin has said he would not fire Mr. Sharon, but there was speculation that the cabinet at its next meeting tomorrow would take the post of defense minister away from him and leave him a member of the cabinet. Mr. Sharon refused to discuss the crisis with reporters. Although the cabinet can't take the defense position away from him, only Mr. Begin can remove him from the cabinet.
And independent truckers leader Mike Parkhurst called off an 11-day nationwide strike Thursday, but his rivals immediately sent word to the big rig drivers to stay on strike. Mr. Parkhurst said, "We are officially asking independent truckers and small fleet owners who have joined the shutdown to get back to work as soon as possible." George Sullivan, head of the rival organization called Independent Truckers Unity Committee, said that many truckers disagree with Mr. Parkhurst. "He's got a piece of paper that's worth the paper, not worth the paper it's written on," Sullivan said. Mr. Sullivan, who claimed to represent more than 35,000 truckers, said later that his committee would decide this weekend whether to continue the strike. And Paul Deach, representative of the Fraternal Association of Steel Haulers, said, "We feel Parkhurst's arrangement with the authorities that we return to work on his suggestion and their promise of studying our problem is unacceptable." Rumors of an end to the violent strike have been circulating for the past 2 days as more and more drivers return to the highways. A coal carrier ship with a crew of 34 capsized in the Atlantic earlier today, and at least 7 crewmen were pulled from the icy waters, of whom may not have survived if it wasn't for the Coast Guard. A Coast Guard spokesman said rescue crews were searching for 27 others who may be floating in the frigid waters about 30 miles off of Chitokee, West Virginia. The crew of the coal carrier Marine Electric sent out a distress signal about 3:13 a.m., notifying the Coast Guard that they were abandoning the ship for 2 lifeboats and Petty Officer Garth Groff. One of the helicopters sent to the scene began airlifting survivors, although the rescue attempts were successful.
National Cancer Institute researchers say a virus linked to a relatively rare form of adult leukemia is more widespread than originally believed, but appears only minimally infectious. A report in the February 18th issue of Science magazine said the virus has now been isolated from white blood cells of patients in the United States, Israel, West Indies, and Japan. The U.S. cases have been observed predominantly among blacks in the southeastern states, Alaska, Boston, and Seattle, the Cancer Institute said. The virus is linked to a variant form of adult blood cell cancer known as T-cell leukemia. The disease usually progresses rapidly, often with enlarged liver and spleen and diseased lymph nodes. Dr. Kazuo Fujima of the Aiki Cancer Center in Nagoya, Japan, said in September that undernutrition, which lowers disease resistance, might be a factor in determining who develops the disease. Scientists in Japan, where the virus appears most common, say only 1 of every 2,000 people infected with the virus develops the disease each year. About $224 was raised for the Derek Perryman Liver Fund at the Lena's Pizza benefit last night. The benefit kicked off with the tunes of Kool-Aid Wino and lasted until about 2 p.m. According to Lena's manager, Joel Gibbons, 400 attended. The benefit continues at Lena's with live telecasts from Channel 4.
And the Winterfest activities were held today in the campus center. Here's Kathy Zarowski with more.
Tim Ignatius called for a rebounding foul. 10 minutes.
As the temperature was in the teens. It included various activities and displays of different cultural talents, such as the Indian exhibits, antique dolls, jewelry, and pottery displays.
There'll be sleigh rides outside for only 50 cents. Just 50 cents outside.
A hot tub provided by Fisher Pools made the hot tub party outside Cranston a success. It offered relaxation to those who dared to take a dip despite the freezing cold. All in all, the Winterfest activities provide fun, excitement, and relaxation for those who would normally have stayed in on a day like today.
We also have a remote with the head of the Cultural Events Committee. Here's more.
Leading Church.
Cultural Events Commission. Todd, how's this year's Winterfest going?
It's looking really good. For a little bit of snow we have, we've only had one or two events, I guess, canceled. Cross country was, I think, the only thing that has been canceled officially. Still got the sleigh rides going on. We're trying to do snow sculptures. It's coming along pretty good.
How does this year's Winterfest compare to last year's Winterfest?
I think really good. Last year was sort of the beginning year. It's our second annual. It's getting a little bit better every year. You know, the only thing we could ask for is a little bit more snow.
You like one of the founders of this?
No, I've been helping Shirley Scott, who's our Assistant Director of Student Activities, who's the one who really got it started last year. And she keeps going with it and getting it bigger and better every year. And anyone who's around, just stop by the info office and offer to help on this or any other event that we've got. Homecoming, Parents Weekend, Fredonia Fest, Labor Day Fest. We need help on all of them.
So could you compare this to last year's?
Bigger and better, just like it's going to get every year. This is the second annual. I can't wait to see the third annual. It should be really great.
You still got an elbow.
The Faculty Student Committee on Student Affairs Tuesday voted to bring a recommendation before the Alcohol Review Committee regarding the endorsement of temporary beer permits. The recommendation suggests that the Office of Student Affairs sign for the permits and that UBG members work as trained bartenders on a voluntary or paid basis. According to Vice President of Student Affairs Michael Dimitri, the change in responsibility from students is crucial in order to avoid litigation. Although the ABC permit does not explicitly require board members of an organization to be 21, Dimitri said that members under 21 would almost ensure denial of a temporary license by the Jamestown ABC board. Dimitri also said that letting ARC sign for the permits is unlikely because the individual signing the license is knocked back by an institution. Mark, are we going to be affected by the storm in the east?
Well, let's take a look at our national weather map and see what's happening. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see where the blizzard hit. It went from Boston to Baltimore and down into parts of Virginia and West Virginia. There's a cold front moving in from the west, and it's dumping rain over Washington and Oregon. We also have a high-pressure system coming from Canada and Minnesota. That warm front should push the cold front to the southeast of us, but it's too early to tell. We'll know by mid-Monday, though. Let's take a look at our current board and see what's happening over here. Okay, currently it's 23 degrees. Our high today was 24 degrees, only one above that. Our low is 7 degrees. Barometer is 29.96 and steady. There is no precipitation, and the sunrise for tomorrow will be 7:17. Taking a look at our long-range forecast, today we have clear, low in the teens. It also goes for tonight. Sunday is going to be sunny and mild with a high of 32 degrees. Monday is going to be pretty much the same. The rest of the week is going to be 12 to 17 degrees for the lows and 30 to 35 degrees for the highs. Remember that Monday is Valentine's Day, so all you girls go out and buy your boyfriends, fiancés, whatever, box of candy, give it to them. Have a good day. Lou, what do we got for sports this weekend?
Well, I'd rather talk about sports than Valentine's Day because I've yet to get my gift for my lady. Well, anyways, the final leaders in the fan balloting for the 33rd National Basketball Association All-Star Game tomorrow at the Forum in Los Angeles is out, and the starting lineups are as follows. For the Eastern Conference, Moses Malone, Julius Erving, and Maurice Cheeks from the Philadelphia 76ers, Isaiah Thomas of Detroit, and Larry Bird of Boston. Then the Western Conference, from the world champion Los Angeles Lakers, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson, Alex English of Denver, Maurice Lucas of Phoenix, and David Thompson of Seattle. Wayne Gretzky scored 4 goals Tuesday night to lead the Canville Conference to a 9-3 rout over the Wales Conference in the 35th National Hockey League All-Star Game. The 21-year-old Gretzky set records in the game for most points in a game and most goals in a game, also most points in a period. This made an improbable hero of goaltender John Garrett of Vancouver, who let up 1 goal out of 21 shots. John was substituting for an injured teammate. Not bad for Gretzky, considering most 21-year-olds are still in college and not making mega bucks. The Fredonia State men's track team won the Rochester Relays, competing with 16 other colleges from New York. The nearest opponent was the University of Rochester, finishing 26 points behind the Blue Devils. Fredonia captured the high jump 4x400 relay and set records in the 4x800 relay, sprint medley, and Kevin Rumsey set a record in the 3,000 meters run. Sam Perkins, North Carolina's standout junior forward, said the University of San Francisco made unbelievable offers while trying to recruit him 3 years ago. Quote, "They just went around saying you'll be getting things such as stereos, cars, money, whatever." The NCAA announced its review of the situation at USF and said no further penalties would be imposed. How could they give any more penalties to USF, considering they dropped their basketball program altogether? Last Saturday night, the University of Buffalo drubbed Fredonia State in basketball 86-74. The Blue Devils continued their losing ways by getting nipped by Oswego State 69-66. Wednesday at home, though, was a different story, as Fredonia stomped on Houghton 60-53. The Blue Devils play Rockport State tonight at home, following the women's basketball game versus Allegheny going on right now. Number 1, North Carolina edged second-ranked Virginia for the second time this year, 64-63. The Tar Heels trailed by as many as 16 points with 8 minutes to go in the game before rallying. Michael Jordan of North Carolina led all scores with 16. Number 3, Nevada, Las Vegas remained unbeaten today after beating Fresno State. Number 4, Indiana won their Big Ten game. UCLA lost for the 5th straight time to Oregon State in Oregon. Number 6, Houston plays tonight. Number 7, St. John's goes up against Big East weakling Connecticut tonight. Missouri nipped Oklahoma in overtime. Arkansas, 19-1, plays host to Texas A&M. And rounding out my top 10 is Louisville, who beat Marquette this afternoon. Danny White threw a touchdown pass to John Jefferson with 31 seconds left in the Pro Bowl game to give the NFC a 20-19 victory over the AFC. The New York Jets coach, Walt Michaels, retired Wednesday. He brought the Jets from 3-11 in '77 to a championship game this year. Brooks Robinson and Juan Marshall have been elected to the baseball's Hall of Fame. And the United States Postal Service finally did something good besides raising their stamp prices. They put a stamp out for Babe Ruth in his Baltimore house where the Bambino was born 88 years ago. Wayne Gretzky of the Edmonton Oilers has scored 100-plus points for the 4th straight consecutive year. The Boston Bruins goaltender Pete Peters has remained unbeaten in his last 30 games. And in basketball, the New Jersey Nets have traded Mickey Johnson and rookie guard Eric Sleepy Floyd to the Golden State Warriors for Michael Ray Richardson. Chris Everett Lloyd won the Marani Cup tennis tournament, defeating Andre Yeager for the first time in 3 years. John McEnroe defeated Yvonne Lendl in the finals of the U.S. Pro Indoor Championships. Nancy Lopez won the $150,000 Elizabeth Arden Classic in Miami by 1 stroke over 3 others. Tom Kite won the Bing Crosby National Pro-Am over Kelvin Peete, and Bob Hope couldn't play because of an eye injury. Last week in bowling, Guppy Troop averaged a .239 in his final 3 games to capture the Quaker State Open in Florida. And Bob Wollek's Porsche Turbo 935 took the 24 hours at Daytona with help from A.J. Foyt. Good considering Wollek said Foyt couldn't drive a sports car. And 61-year-old Arthur Boynton asked to withdraw from the Vermont Golden Glove competition. He was in great shape too. Ironically, Arthur's first opponent, a 17-year-old, had to withdraw because of high blood pressure. Lightweight champion Alexis Arguello will call it quits after the end of the year if he doesn't find his fourth championship, that is. Marvelous Marvin Hagler ripped apart Tony Simpson last night in the 6th round to remain the middleweight champion. Ray Boom Boom Mancini won a unanimous decision over George Feeney. Mancini will fight again April 29th against Kenny Bang Bang Bogner. What an interesting fight it should be. Boom Boom versus Bang Bang. Anybody knowing the whereabouts of heavyweight contender Jerry Cooney? Please call me at the WNYF studios. My commentary today is on the Yankees. Guess what, Yankee fans? Billy's back, at least until opening day this time. Yankee owner George Steinbrenner has hired Billy Martin, the 4-time winner of the Manager of the Year award. Again, why? Because at the press conference, George said, quote, "You've got to go with a winner to get a winner." Why then did George fire Billy before? Well, the first time Steinbrenner fired Billy was because Martin called him a liar, almost got into a fight with star slugger Reggie Jackson while on national TV, and the big no-no, he was losing. The second time was for punching out a marshmallow salesman at a bar. Known for his fiery and exciting managerial style, Martin is considered a master of baseball strategy. Billy is one of the few active managers to have a winning record. It's true that Martin brings success to the teams he manages, but why have 5 different teams fired him? Ever since he was a little boy, he was pushed around. Finally, he just started fighting those people back. He brought that fiery attitude into the majors as a player and a coach. George Steinbrenner and Billy Martin go together like oil and water. They just don't mix, and it couldn't be long before the season when George starts going headhunting, and it's the managers that always hear about it first. So if you love the Yankees or hate them, your problems are always fun to read about. Well, John, that's all for sports. What's going around on the campus?
Thanks, Lou. Tonight, the Winterfest activities at Fredonia State will include a hot tub beach party at 8 p.m. at Cranston Hall. On Sunday, February 13th, there will also be continuing Festival of Crafts at 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the Campus Center. Also, there will be sleigh rides at noon to 5 p.m. outside the Campus Center, and a small fee will be charged. An afternoon at the Lodge will be from 1 to 5 p.m. in the College Lodge in Brockton. Also at the Lodge, there will be cross-country skiing at 7 p.m. with free equipment on loan. Sledding and tubing will be part of the event, and refreshments will be available. A hoedown, roundup, square dance will be at 3 p.m. also at the Lodge. On Valentine's Day, February 14th, Understanding Un-Americans and Ourselves. This 50-minute videotape program features James Bostain, faculty member of the Foreign Service Institute, and an amateur comedian at 7 p.m. in the Campus Center, room G144. On Tuesday, February 15th, the faculty chamber music evening will be at Dyer's Recital Hall at 8 p.m. On Thursday, February 17th, there will be a showcase of student musical talent at King Concert Hall at 4 p.m. The Fredonia State English Department announces It's a Wonderful Life as the 4th film in the Chautauqua Cattaraugus Library Film Series. The film will be shown on February 15th at 7 p.m. in Fenton Hall, room 105. This 125-minute movie is directed by Frank Capra. James Stewart stars as George Bailey, who attempts to fulfill his dreams of traveling. And that's this week's campus events. Kathy?
And in Houston today, Governor Mark White did his civic duty by reporting for jury selection, and a city parking meter reader did her job by placing a parking ticket on his illegally parked car. Defense lawyer Max Leeper rejected White Thursday as a juror in his client's aggravated robbery trial because he feared adverse publicity for his client. White said, "I was prepared to serve. I was disappointed, but I imagine he felt like this would be too much attention to the case." When White left the Harris County Courthouse several hours after arriving, he found a parking ticket on his windshield for an expired meter. The potential jurors were delighted the governor bothered to show up. This concludes the Saturday Evening Report. For John Baker, Lou Augusto, and Mark Norris, I'm Kathy Zarowski. Have a good evening.
pulls up a dribble, gives to Linda Bates. Bates doesn't.
Welcome to the Saturday Evening Report. I'm Kathy Zarowski.
And I'm John Baker. Some United Steelworker officials betrayed by U.S. Steel Corporation's use of inexpensive foreign steel in building the West Coast's tallest skyscraper have walked out on contract talks with the industry. U.S. Steel's American Bridge Division won the contract for Seattle's new 76-story Columbia Center office tower by importing Japanese steel made in South Korea. U.S. Steel, the nation's largest steelmaker and leader of the industry's coordinated bargaining unit, is trying for the third time in a year to lower its costs so it can better compete with foreign steelmakers. The U.S. Steel said market conditions left no other alternative but to use foreign steel. The royal yacht carrying Queen Elizabeth II on her visit to western United States steamed north from Mexico today toward her harbor greeting, but the festive ships awaiting her arrival did not at all carry well-wishers. The Royal Yacht Britannia was to leave Mexican waters early this morning, beginning a 10-day California visit filled with activities from a visit to the Space Shuttle factory, to a Hollywood party, to a horseback ride with President Reagan at his ranch. The Congress of Irish Organizations plan to launch at least 5 boats to join the welcoming flotilla with a banner reading, "Get out of Northern Ireland." Opponents of Britain's policy in Northern Ireland and other political groups, including Argentines unhappy at their nation's defeat in the Falklands War, have announced demonstrations throughout the state as the royal tour progresses.
Congress was urged Thursday to set aside almost $1 million in a multi-billion-dollar jobs and relief measure now nearing passage for areas with high unemployment like Buffalo and Niagara Falls. Representative John J. LaFalce of Tonawanda introduced legislation that would target 75% of the $1.2 billion in the bill, earmarked for community development and block grants to areas with unemployment rates of 9% or higher. LaFalce told the House this is an emergency program and the allocation of funds should reflect the high unemployment that afflicts communities like Niagara Falls and Buffalo, where unemployment hovers around 20% and 15% respectively. The Reagan administration, environmentalists, and the major steel companies agreed Thursday on new regulations that will reduce toxic waste that steel and iron plants pour into rivers and streams by 53,000 tons a year. The regulations, issued last May by the Environmental Protection Agency, would require steel plants to have the best available technology installed for reducing toxic discharges by July 1, 1984. Both the steel industry and the Natural Resources Defense Council, a Washington-based environmental group, had challenged the regulations in the U.S. Court of Appeals.
And relief teams Thursday rescued 20 people buried in heavy snow from Lebanon's second major storm in a week. But one woman died in an avalanche that roared into the northern town of Beqaa, police said. The woman's death raised the total to at least 65, the number of people known to have died in 2 storms. The first and worst blizzard in Lebanon's history hit the country February 17th. The new storm brought torrential rain, which turned to snow above elevations of 2,400 feet. Snow from the previous storm ranged in depth from 6 to 30 feet. Forecasters predicted the new storm would continue until tomorrow at least. President Reagan, seeking to contain the Environmental Protection Agency controversy installed a new top-level management team on Thursday, but said Administrator Ann Gorsh-Buford remains his confidence. The White House announced Mr. Reagan named successors to 3 high-level administrators who have been fired or forced to resign. He also created a new post to handle relations with Congress and elevated another EPA official. The action was described by White House officials as an attempt at damage control, coming in the midst of investigations by Congress and the FBI of the agency. Sources indicated there had been discussion at senior levels of the White House about replacing Ms. Burford, but Mr. Reagan confirmed her position.
The Foreign Relations Committee agreed Thursday to send President Reagan's nomination of Kenneth Adelman, U.S. Arms Control Chief, to the full Senate, but voted 14-3 to report the nomination unfavorably. Opponents of the controversial nomination joined supporters in the final vote to get it to the Senate floor after Senate Majority Leader Howard Baker threatened to introduce a motion of discharge to force it from the committee. A motion to recommend confirmation failed earlier on a 9-8 vote. Senator Paul Tsongas of Massachusetts said he will filibuster in order to block a vote by the full Senate. He and other critics charged that Mr. Adelman lacks both the knowledge and the commitment to the arms control needed for the job. A former Conrail brakeman will receive $1 million over the next 25 years in an out-of-court settlement stemming from an accident that cost him both legs. Clifford Wilder of Fulton will get an immediate $370,000 payment. Payments will end in 25 years when he will receive $250,000. The lawsuit was set to go to trial March 29th in U.S. District Court in Syracuse, but settled Thursday, officials said. John?
Thank you, Kathy. And a new federal tip reporting law has many local restaurant managers up in the air on the law's procedures and effects. The Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982 requires restaurants and bars which employ 10% or more on a regular basis to file annual information returns. The returns must show gross receipts for food and beverages, employee-reported tip income, and aggregate charge receipt and charge tips, according to the Federal Internal Revenue Service. What the new law does is require waiters and waitresses to report every penny of their tips. This, however, is not a new policy. Waiters and waitresses have been required to report all their tips for years. The law went into effect January 1st, however. There seems to be some confusion concerning when the actual law is to be implemented. A consumer group says 2% cut in national fuel gas rates is not enough and plans demonstrations to pressure the utility to drop rates faster. It's too little, too late, said Tom Soto, a spokesman for All People's Congress, which has held numerous public demonstrations in Buffalo against high natural gas prices. Gerald Miller, Vice President of National Fuel, Friday said the decrease effective March 1st would mean a savings of about $18 per year for the average customer. He said the reduction would continue for 1 year. Soto, however, called the decrease a public relations stunt. A public hearing on the request is scheduled for March 30th.
State Supreme Court Justice Michael Dillon rejected a plea from Public Defender Jerry Hyde Thursday afternoon concerning the trial of Albert Salgado of Dunkirk. Justice Dillon denied the plea for the trial to be delayed, ruling that it was premature to ask for a trial to be moved until an attempt has been made to pick a jury locally. Suspect Salgado was one of 3 defendants charged in the suffocation death of Margaret Helvonic, 65, of East Main Street, Dunkirk. Her death occurred during a robbery and burglary at her home. Daniel Kane, 29, of Dunkirk, who was also involved, was found guilty and will be sentenced Monday. Francis Barone, 45, of Cassadaga, was returned here from Florida, but no date has been set for his trial. Salgado will go on trial Tuesday in Chautauqua County Court. A West Side man was charged Thursday with second-degree manslaughter in the death of a 29-year-old man who suffered fatal head injuries outside a West Side bar last weekend in Buffalo. Homicide Chief Leo J. Donovan said Thomas Syracuse, 27, of Barton Street, was charged with the death of Gregory McMurray, who was found lying on the sidewalk outside the Ram Bar, 312 Rhode Island Street, about 3 a.m. Saturday. McMurray of 197 15th Street died about 8:20 a.m. Monday in the Columbus Hospital. The cause of death was bleeding in the brain due to a fractured skull.
In town of Tonawanda, police have identified the parents of the 5-pound, 5-ounce baby girl abandoned on a Loretta Street doorstep Tuesday. The unnamed infant is in good condition in Children's Hospital. Town Police Chief Robert McDonald said Thursday night that the department has reestablished the identity of the parents but cannot release the names because of them are minors. When asked if he will press charges against the parents for abandoning the baby, he said we'll turn the case over to Child Services further. A tumble down a 40-foot embankment and a resulting sprained ankle ended a burglary suspect's bid for freedom from Colvin Station Police. Sam Watkins of 217 Leroy Avenue was charged with burglary and grand larceny by Officer Ronald Clark, who, along with other officers from the Colvin Station, Kensington Station, and the Juvenile Bureau, were led on a 20-minute chase through backyards after spotting the suspect near Parkside and Florence Avenues in Buffalo. Police officer Clark said a duffel bag that Watkins was carrying contained $1,700 worth of camera equipment stolen from a home at 57 Florence Avenue in Buffalo. The bag was recovered during the chase.
Ephraim Cordero, 44 of 90 King Street, Dunkirk, has been ordered held for the grand jury on a charge of second-degree murder in the February 20th death of his wife, Juana Cordero, of 115 Lincoln Street, Dunkirk. In a preliminary hearing Thursday afternoon, Coroner Daniel Newman testified before City Court Judge August Jankowski that Mrs. Cordero was stabbed 34 times. Police are continuing to search for the weapon. Police Chief Edward Melville said the department is testing knives that residents have given to police. Playwright Tennessee Williams was found dead Friday in Manhattan hotel room. Police sources said the room contained wine and pills. A recently prescribed bottle of Seconal plus 4 partially empty wine bottles were found. An autopsy was planned today. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Elliot Gross said an initial examination determined that Williams died of natural causes. He confirmed Williams was under treatment for heart disease and said today's autopsy was only a formality. Deputy Inspector Stephen Kelly said the death could have been caused by an overdose or one of several ailments Williams suffered, including a heart condition. John?
Thank you, Kathy. A Gowanda man was arrested by Fredonia-based state police early today for allegedly entering the Larry Nagel residence on Point Peter Road and assaulting Mr. Nagel and members of his family. Joseph Barber, 19, was charged with 2 counts of second-degree assault, second-degree reckless endangerment, and first-degree burglary. He was arraigned before Persia Town Justice Kenneth Strohmeyer and was committed to the Cattaraugus County Jail. The arrest was made by Trooper E.J. Haas and Investigator Timothy Howard of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation Unit. After years of trying, state wildlife officials have acquired a piece of land that will keep Harvey's Lake a prime fishing spot, but it took Jacques Cousteau to get the job done. The parcel covers the only major spawning habitat for the lake's smelt population, which lake trout, rainbow trout, and salmon feed. The state had been trying to buy the property to prevent a dam from being built there. Fish and Game Commissioner Gary Moore said a dam could destroy trout fishing in the lake. The famed oceanographer came to the rescue to ensure the fishing at the lake in the northeastern part of the state, where he learned to dive as a child at summer camp.
While MASH's final episode will be Monday night, many people will go on believing Jamie Farr isn't Jamie Farr, but Klinger. What bothers Farr, who created his extravagant transvestite 11 years ago from 6 lines in a script, is that some people think the MASH scenario is real. He said he doesn't know if he wants that responsibility. He had no intention of having this national importance. He only wanted a weekly job with a paycheck and doing what he liked most. Farr said he's not that important. He believes his character as Klinger is unique, but nothing as great as peacemakers, scientists, and educators of the world. Klinger has been out of his dress for some time now, and he's likely to remain out of it when he becomes the protagonist of a new CBS series to be set in a Veterans Administration hospital entitled Aftermash. A Mayville man was arrested by the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Department on Route 20 in Westfield early today and charged with driving while intoxicated. Robert B. Carlson of Moore Road was also charged with driving with more than 0.10% blood alcohol content and having an inadequate exhaust. He was released without bail and is scheduled to appear in Westfield Town Court on Monday, March 7th.
The New York Public Interest Research Group is presently distributing flyers which will be presented to Representative Stanley Lundeen, protesting the 40% hike in natural gas prices since last year. The signing of the flyers will help push for a special congressional hearing by the Fossil Fuel Committee in Western New York. Under the phased decontrol plan, national gas prices are expected to double again before 1985. Dan Kassler, the utility project coordinator at the Fredonia Nyperg chapter, is asking that people quote the price of their last bill on the flyer. We're asking for the copies of the fuel bills so that Congressman Lundeen realizes that these problems are real, Kassler said. For more information on the utilities project, call the Nyperg office in the campus center at 673-3581. The disappearance of a trailer from the Kraft Foods parking lot in Dunkirk since December 24th was reported Friday. The vehicle, owned by Fredonia Express, is 45 feet long with fiberglass sides. The trailer was empty at the time of the theft. Dunkirk police received a report Friday from an Altec security guard concerning theft and damage to a van owned by Donald Williams. The van was parked in the Altec lot on Lucas Avenue. Police report Mr. Williams' van was removed from its parking space on Lucas to another company lot. The bumper of the vehicle was damaged along with some interior damage. Taken from the van was a wallet containing 4 credit cards, a toolbox, and approximately $4 in change.
A student graphic design show is highlighted in Gallery 2 of the Michael C. Rockefeller Arts Center. The work produced by students in the Department of Art Graphic Design program is a cross-section of items including posters, trademarks, covers, booklets, and various graphic experiments. Imagery explored by the students ranges from photography to typography. The public is invited to view the show Monday through Friday. Gallery hours are from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The Modern British Group of the English Department will sponsor its 2 hours Poems Past and Present poetry reading on Wednesday at 8 p.m. in Fenton Hall, room 127. This is a change from the calendar listing, which stated the location is Fenton 105. Poems Past and Present will present readings of poems written by students, faculty, and community members. Readings of classic poems from modern British literature will also be featured. According to Dr. Robert C. Schweik, program organizer, the group is also encouraging readings about relations between the sexes. Anyone wishing to participate may contact Dr. Schweik in the English department at 673-3587. And now for a look at today's weather.
Substituting for Mark Norris, I'm Doreen Horrigan. A look at today's weather. The sun was shining bright across the campus today. It was a tad bit chilly. It was a perfect day to get out and enjoy the weather. I'm sure you're just as tired as I am of sitting around in those small four-walled rooms, right? Right. In the national weather forecast, there was a cold front moving east across the northern part of the country. While there was rain along the west coast also, it was fair and mild along the east coast. On our current weather board, the temperature is 22 degrees, our high is 30, and the low is 20. Winds are traveling west-southwest, 15 miles per hour. Barometer is 30.50 and steady. The accumulation is, there's not been a trace. On the extended forecast, tonight, mainly clear, low 20. Sunday, fair and mild. The high is 40. Monday, same, 30 to 40. Well, that's with the weather. Now for sports, Lou.
Thank you, Doreen. College football superstar Herschel Walker stunned the football world this past week by signing a contract with the New Jersey Generals of the United States Football League instead of playing out his final year of college eligibility at Georgia. Herschel's reported contract is worth $1.2 million for each of his next 3 years. This makes Walker the highest paid football player in America. Fredonia State put a scare into Buffalo State last Saturday, losing to the Bengals in overtime 69-64. The SUNYAC Division champions put the game into overtime with 1 second left in regulation with a shot from the corner by Dave Hart. The Blue Devils were led by Chris Huey and Norm Sweet, who have carried the team all year long. Fredonia finished 3-7 in the conference, but upped its record to 9-13 overall after beating Alfred 76-68 Monday night. The Lady Blue Devils nipped Geneseo 65-62 last Saturday, and Lisa Rouleau scored her 1,000th point with 7 minutes to go in the game. Lisa led Fredonia with 19 points and 5 rebounds. Tuesday, they finished their season with a 72-53 drubbing of Roberts Wesleyan. The leading scorers were Margot Rete with 20 points, and 6 of them came from the foul line. Lisa Rouleau was 16, Karen Schuster added 14, and the Lady Blue Devils finished the season with an 8-11 record. Fredonia State crushed 6 other track teams in the first Fredonia Indoor Invitational Track Meet. Senior Dan Mazoniak set school and field house records in the 35-pound weight throw and the shot put. The Blue Devils also set field house records in 8 other events. Fredonia did so well that if you add up all the other schools' points, they don't even come close to equaling the Blue Devils. The NCAA Top 10 will be in for a change next week after the only undefeated and #1 team in the country, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, lost to Fullerton State Thursday night 86-78. #2 Houston plays Rice. #3 Virginia finished the week at 22-3. #4 Indiana at Michigan State. #5 Arkansas at Texas Tech. #6 Louisville versus Western Kentucky. And #7 Villanova nipped #8 St. John's in overtime with a shot from John Pannone. #9 UCLA plays USC tonight, and rounding out the top 10 is Kentucky, who beat Georgia 81-72. 24-year-old golfer Gary Hallberg fired a 6-under par 66 to win the $300,000 Andy Williams San Diego Open. Rookie bowler Joel Salvamini rolled 3 strikes in the 10th frame to nip PBA Hall of Famer Johnny Petraglia in the $125,000 Rolaids Open. Jimmy Connors was seeking his 3rd straight tennis tournament victory in California last week, but nobody told Mike Bauer, who upset the #1 tennis player in America. Cal Yarborough won the Daytona 500 auto race for the 3rd time in his career. Distance runner Mary Decker Tabb, who broke 7 world and 10 USA records in 1982, was named the winner of the Sullivan Award, given to the best American amateur athlete. Super Bowl MVP John Riggins is talking with the Michigan Panthers of the United States Football League. Washington Redskins owner Ken Cook doubtfully will let him go. Michigan Panthers of the United States Football League, though, signed a 3-time All-American Anthony Carter today. The rumors that Buffalo Bills are going to trade Joe Ferguson for Ron Jaworski are not true. According to Jaworski, his mother started them. Chicago Bears quarterback Jim McMahon was named the NFC's Rookie of the Year. Redskins wide receiver Charlie Brown finished 2nd. NFL assistant coaches voted Jets Marvin Powell and the Giants Lawrence Taylor the league's best offensive lineman and defensive player. Sports attorney Bob Wolf today said that star basketball player Larry Bird will not be seeking a 10-year, $50 million contract. No, Wolf said maybe we'll ask for only $4 million a year. And in basketball, former New York Knicks teammates Bill Bradley and Dave DeBusschere, along with North Carolina coach Dean Smith and former Cincinnati Royals star Jack Twyman, were named to the Basketball Hall of Fame. Yankee turmoil already. First baseman John Mayberry hasn't shown up for practice yet. And believe it or not, George Steinbrenner and Billy Martin agree on something. They feel this could hurt the chances of Mayberry making the team. Philadelphia Phillies star pitcher Steve Carlton refuses to sign a contract unless he's the highest paid pitcher in baseball. And Fernando Valenzuela won his arbitration case against the Los Angeles Dodgers for $1 million this coming up season. The odds are already out for who is going to be in the World Series this year. St. Louis and Milwaukee of last year's World Series are at 3-1 odds, as are the New York Yankees. My commentary today is on Herschel Walker, who put a shock in the football world this past week for being the first college football player to drop out of college and become a pro. Herschel joined the New Jersey Generals of the United States Football League instead of playing out his senior year at Georgia. Personally, I don't see what the big fuss is all about. College basketball players have been dropping out of college and earning a lot of money in the NBA for years now. Herschel was offered a contract for over $3 million for the next 3 years. What college student in his right mind would turn that sum of money down? The NFL is mad because they weren't smart enough to sign probably the best running back in college football history. College football coaches are ticked off because they're afraid that both the NFL and USFL may start raiding the undergraduate crop. The University of Georgia is upset because without Herschel in the backfield, their chances are very slim of winning the NCAA college football championships next year. The students on the campus are calling Herschel greedy and a liar. The students quickly forget that Walker has brought them a national championship in his freshman year and 2 top 5 finishes in his last 2 years. Why should Walker stick it out in college football when he has a possibility of getting injured and never fulfilling his dream of playing professional football? Herschel, just take the money and run. And that's it for sports.
Okay, Lou, thanks. And to conclude, a Florida jury found a painter, Albert McAleer, 27, innocent of driving while intoxicated because he apparently was high on paint instead of alcohol. Mr. McAleer was arrested last March 19th after police said his car was weaving on the road. But testimony at his trial indicated that a routine day of painting had made Mr. McAleer's blood level reading go from a normal level of 0.01 on a breathalyzer test to 0.11 by exposure to painting materials. Florida's legal level of intoxication is 0.10. This concludes the Saturday Evening Report. From all of us here at WNYF, we hope you have a good week. Stay tuned. Fredonia Speaks His Mind is next, along with the movie Animal House. Welcome to the Saturday Evening Report. I'm John Baker.
And I'm Kathy Zarowski. A student strike has been scheduled for all day Monday here at Fredonia State University. Students are being asked to boycott classes and attend the rally, which will be held in the campus center. This day-long event will include workshops from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. concerning the SUNY budget and federal financial aid teach-in, and a rally will be held at 12:30. A letter-writing campaign is also planned. Speakers for the rally will be Mike Danahy, Student Association President, Mike Woodruff, Financial Aid, Dr. Lee Browd, UUP Local President, and Tom Keating, SASU Organizer. Now we'll go to an interview that I held with Mike Danahy and Stuart DeCamp earlier today.
A large number of them will, and I'm hoping that the ones that do avoid their classes will show up at the teach-ins that are being held at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at 1:45, so they're not just taking a day off from classes and they're doing something, because the idea of this is that, well, a lot of students have been so busy in their classes that they haven't had the time to be educated about what's going on outside the classes, things that may mean there won't be the classes next semester, that they may not be in the classes. So I'm hoping that we'll have especially large numbers at the rally at 12:30. That's the thing that I'm really hoping will come off very well.
Stuart, how does the administration feel about this boycott?
I spoke with Vice President Kuhn, and he was told us to go ahead with it. There would be no problem. He just hoped it doesn't turn into an all-out riot on campus. He said go ahead with it. The administration was very supportive of the Student Association, of the student body, and they understand our concern with our financial aid cuts and the way the state budget will be affecting the school. And he said go with it. We need to get out there and voice our opinions.
I'm Kathy Zarowski for WNYF News. While some students will be rallying here at Fredonia, hundreds of college students across the nation will meet at Washington, D.C. in protest of President Reagan's proposed cuts in aid program this Monday. About 40 Fredonia students will board a bus at 2:30 a.m. Monday morning, lobby on Capitol Hill that day, and start back for Fredonia at about 5 p.m. the same day. Bob Brown, one program organizer, said students face the possibility of having to contribute 40% of their college costs before applying for the Pell Grant. The work-study program faces a 57% reduction, while students whose parents earn $30,000 per year will not be eligible for the guaranteed student loan. Also, disadvantaged students face a 77% aid reduction, while independent status will be changed. Students will have to be 22 years old before they're able to go independent, as opposed to the present 21-year-old age requirement. Brown said the family contribution scale would be raised to $900 from $350. Students wishing to participate in the National Lobby Day may call the Student Association office at 673-3381.
And elsewhere in the news, 5 people have died from allergic reactions to the prescription pain reliever Zomax. The manufacturer said Friday it was temporarily being pulled from the market. Zomax has been used by 15 million people since it was introduced in October 1980 by McNeil Pharmaceutical, a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson. In a statement issued from its headquarters here, Johnson & Johnson said McNeil was temporarily withdrawing Zomax until a new label advising on possible side effects could be issued in consultation with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. We request that any consumer having Zomax return the drug to the drugstore, said the statement read by spokesman Marshall Malloy. There are 10 to 15 other prescription pain relievers that do the same job as Zomax. It is not a detriment if the drug is not available. A subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson also produces Tylenol, the aspirin-like drug, that was deliberately contaminated with cyanide, killing 7 Chicago area people. The FDA spokesman said they are following the same procedure policy as with the Tylenol. The latest number of allergic reactions reported is approximately 1,000. The severity of these reactions have ranged from mild rash to hypersensitive reactions. The nation's stubborn unemployment rate showed no improvement in February, holding at 10.4%. The Labor Department said today, with 11.5 million people still out of work. The department said that bad weather during February cut construction industry employment, and fewer people were working behind cash registers in retail establishments, canceling gains in the auto industry and among electrical equipment manufacturers, the department said. The single largest category suffering from unemployment was for adult men, who make up half of the nation's jobless and whose unemployment rate climbed 0.3% of a percentage point to 9.9% in January. Janet Norwood, Commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, characterized the January-February performance of the unemployment rate as moderate improvement since December in testimony Friday before the Joint Economic Committee of Congress. Total employment was virtually unchanged, It was $99.06 million in February compared to $99.1 million in January. The unemployment rate for adult women was slightly better compared to January's 9%. The rate for teenagers also showed modest improvement, declining to 22.2%. Unemployment among Hispanic workers became slightly worse, moving to 15.8% from January's 15.5%. Black teenagers' unemployment at 45.5% remained exceptionally high, although marginally improved from January and substantially under November's peak of 49.8%. Today in San Francisco, President Reagan said in a speech taped for broadcast that he will send Congress proposed legislation next week that would lower the minimum wage and give employers tax breaks in a bid to encourage more hiring. Reagan said he will propose a youth opportunity wage of $2.50 per hour, 25% below the regular minimum wage of $3.35. The president also said he will recommend that workers who have been unemployed for a long time be permitted to convert their unemployment benefits into job vouchers, which would entitle their new employers to tax credits. In addition, Reagan said that he wants to increase funding for the part of the Job Training Partnership Act that helps displace workers tenfold to $240 million. He said to address the problem of structural unemployment on a national scale, he will send Congress next week a proposal that brings some improvement to new approaches to the problem.
A Stanton, California police officer is in shock over shooting and killing 5-year-old Patrick Mason, who pointed a toy gun at him in a darkened apartment. The officer, Anthony Spurl, 24, was called to the 267th Union apartment complex by a neighbor who had reported not seeing the boy or his mother for 2 days. Spurl entered the apartment and saw a bedroom door tied shut. He kicked in the door and saw the shadow of a hand coming up with a gun pointing towards his body. Spurl fired. The shot hit the young boy in the neck and he died an hour later at a nearby hospital. The officer apparently did not violate police procedures. The boy's mother may be charged with child neglect and child endangering for leaving the boy unattended with the bedroom door tied shut. National Fuel Gas last week announced they have reduced gas costs by about 10%. The decrease, which went into effect the first of this month, will save the average gas customer an estimated $18 this year. A National Fuel Gas spokesperson said the reduction will save a total of $12.4 million for New York residents. National fuel officials attribute the reduction to the slowdown in wholesale gas prices, which represent 80% of gas bills.
And criminal charges are expected to be filed soon in the death of comedian John Belushi, a prosecutor says. Belushi died a year ago today from an overdose of cocaine and heroin. Deputy District Attorney Michael Montega, who was presenting evidence to the grand jury investigating Belushi's death, said Friday he expects to complete his case next week. I would expect some sort of criminal charges to be filed, Montega said. He said the charges could come within a week of his final grand jury presentation. Belushi was found dead in a bedroom floor of his bungalow in a Sunset Strip hotel March 5th of 1982. Dr. Kenneth Lipke, a Buffalo area steel executive who resigned his post to pursue a $250 million plan to save the Bethlehem Steel Corporation's Lackawanna plant, said that chances of succeeding are 50-50. It was announced in December that steelmaking at this point would end as of December 1983, cutting 7,300 jobs. Bethlehem officials said they held talks with Lipke and were considering his proposal. Lipke stated that his plan would require concessions from United Steelworkers Union as well as help from government, private sources, and the banking industry.
The College Board said Friday that it will withdraw 9 of its achievement tests in New York State because of a law requiring disclosure of the test questions every 3 years. These tests are given in order to measure high school students' competence in specific academic subjects and are used by colleges for placement and in some cases to decide admission. The board's action was taken in response to a 1980 amendment in the Truth in Testing law, which requires disclosure of college entrance examinations. College Board spokesman Robert Seaver said New York students could still take the test by traveling to neighboring states. Residents of the Cassadaga Valley Central School District voiced their opposition to the proposed closing of Jerry Elementary School Tuesday night at a hearing in Sinclairville. Enrollment projections for next year show a decrease of 24 students, and the school administration projects a closing will save about $50,000 the first year and $400,000 over to the next year. A Jerry spokesperson said the school could remain open by taxing residents an additional 60 cents per assessed thousand, which Jerry residents are willing to pay. The Cassadaga Valley Board expects to reach a decision within the next 2 months.
and 4 men were indicted Friday by a Cattaraugus County grand jury on burglary charges. James D. Winship, 22, of Salamanca, was charged with second-degree burglary and second-degree possession of stolen property in connection with a January 6 Cold Spring break-in. Mark Brown reported 4 $50 bills, a ring, and a wristwatch missing. District Attorney Larry Heimlin reported that all the stolen property was recovered. And indicted on third-degree burglary charges were Ricky J. Kazmark, 21, David A. Booth, 16, and Donald Mishner, 20, all of the town of East Otto. They were accused of entering the barn of John Carter on Mason Hill Road in the town of East Otto and stealing a 1969 motorcycle. Chautauqua County Fire Investigator James Tyka said that 2 recent fires in Fredonia were the work of arsonists. A vacant house at 7 Forest Place and a newly remodeled office building at 119 East Main Street were previously listed as fires of suspicious origin. Tyka said the fire at 119 East Main Street had been set in the rear of the building, which is what firemen said at the scene. He declined to say what substances were detected in the samples taken from inside the buildings. A barn on Hardscrabble Road in the town of Westfield was the target of arson on February 17th. Mr. Tyka said a vacant trailer on Smith Street in Brockton burned March 2nd due to an electrical malfunction. The city of Dunkirk has just received what is considered its best audit report in history, according to Fiscal Affairs Officer Brian Frill. Frill said the majority of problems indicated in the survey have already been cleared. Those that need further clarification will be cleared up within one month.
In an apparent shift in university policy, SUNY officials have moved to restore approximately $764,000 to Fredonia state budget, Dr. J. Carter Rowland, Vice President for Academic Affairs, announced Friday. Rowland said the action would restore 88% of the $870,000 the state had originally planned to cut from the budget. He said the money would come from SUNY utility, building repair, and capital equipment lines. The new SUNY proposal will have no effect on tuition. According to Robert E. Kuhn, Vice President for Student Affairs and College Services, the restoration will save about 45 field positions out of 50 that Fredonia would have had to cut under phases 1 and 2 of Governor Cuomo's budget proposal. Rowland said that most of the position cuts left would come from support, not faculty. SASU President and the sole student trustee on the SUNY board, James Tierney, said that nothing had been finalized yet. The state legislature had yet to act on either the original Cuomo budget or the new SUNY plan. The restoration is iffy, Tierney said. The Division of Budget can still impound it. According to Student Association President Michael P. Danahy, Assembly representative reapportionment is necessary. Though the Assembly provides a representative per 100 students, Danahy said representation is inadequate because representatives are provided according to a class system rather than a geographical system. Danahy also said there are problems with the two-way communication system, which advises Assembly representatives to dorm meetings and dorm representatives to Assembly meetings because both groups fail to attend. Assembly Vice President Stuart DeCamp has been studying other SUNY School Student Association constitutions. He said most schools have geographic representation. DeCamp said an ad hoc committee will meet to discuss reapportionment before the semester ends and hopefully implement geographic representation.
And in observance of Black History Month, students from the Theater Arts Department here at Fredonia State will present an afternoon with Robert Hayden, Poet Laureate, on Sunday, March 6th at 3:30 p.m. in the Campus Center second floor lounge. Co-sponsored by the Campus Baha'i Club and Special Services Program, the event will include a videotaped interview with Hayden from a series on 15 American poets prepared by the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor and a dramatic reading of selected works. Hayden is fast becoming recognized as one of the important poets in America today. He is the first Black person to serve as consultant to poetry to the Library of Congress, the highest honor that the United States government can bestow a poet. There will be no admission charge, and the public is invited to attend the reception for the performers following the session. A guest lecture on saving the Amazon region of Brazil will be given by Thomas E. Lovejoy of the World Wildlife Fund at Fredonia State University College on Thursday, March 10th at 8 p.m. in McEwen Hall, room 202. The lecture by Dr. Lovejoy is part of a continuing series of explorations into tropical ecology here at Fredonia State. A reception will follow Dr. Lovejoy's lecture in Jewett Hall Lounge. The Fredonia Chamber Players will present 4 Jazz Age classics on Tuesday, March 8th. The performance will be at 8 p.m. in Fredonia State's King Concert Hall. James Smith of Fredonia State Music Department will conduct the ensemble and 4 jazz pieces by Kurt Weil, Darius Milhound, Igor Stravinsky, and George Gershwin. Pianist Phyllis East, a former graduate student at Fredonia State, will be featured in a performance of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. For ticket information, call the campus central box office at 673-3501. And now for a look at today's weather. Colleen?
It seems that we have reached the end of another beautiful day. The high earlier this afternoon was 64 degrees. Just a beautiful day to blow off all of your work, play a little frisbee, or just get a pre-tan for that Florida trip. Even though you may almost want to go swimming, the water temperature in Lake Erie is 37 degrees, not quite warm enough to do anything but freeze. Looking at the weather for the next 2 days and for the rest of the evening, we'll have partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of precipitation. Highs will be in the low 50s. For the you can expect cloudy skies with a 50% chance of showers. Lows will be about 40. Tomorrow we'll have partly cloudy skies with highs in the 50s. We can also expect some occasional showers later in the afternoon. Looking at the records for this day, the highest temperature was 70 degrees in 1976, while in 1978 the record was a nippy 7 degrees. The extended forecast for the beginning of next week will be occasional showers with temperatures in the upper 40s. And on Wednesday, we might be back to typical Fredonia weather. 60% chance of flurries with temperatures in the low 30s. All in all, make you appreciate your spring break in Daytona Beach a little bit more. And now here's Lou with sports.
Thank you, Colleen. Tomorrow starts the new United States Football League, with ABC televising the Chicago Blitz at the Washington Federals or Herschel Walker's New Jersey Generals traveling to Los Angeles to play the Express. Other games Sunday include Boston at Tampa Bay, Oakland traveling to Arizona, and Denver playing host to Philadelphia. ESPN will be picking up the Monday night telecast between the Michigan Panthers and the Birmingham Stallions. Besides the NBA having a long, drawn-out season that runs from October to June, the NBA players may go on strike as of April 2nd. By then, most of the players will have received at least 90% of their salaries. Boston Celtics owner Harry Mangirian estimates that each team could lose about $2 million, and that the strike could force some of the NBA franchises to fold. The men's track team hosted an open meet last Saturday, preparing for the SUNY Championships at Cortland today. The Blue Devils looked awesome as they captured 10 of 14 events. Dan Lazoniak set another record in the shot put and also won the 35-pound weight throw. Kim Moore won the high jump and placed second in the triple jump. The women's track team also hosted an open meet last Saturday. Pat Goodwin captured the high jump. Chris Dodson won the long jump. The Lady Blue Devils took the first three finishes in the 800-meter run. Sharon O'Neill won the 1,500-meter run. And Fredonia finished the afternoon winning the distance medley relay. The Lady Blue Devils run again March 12th, hosting a woman-only meet. Vicki Brick, the student nurse assaulted by former University of San Francisco All-American Quentin Daly, dropped her lawsuit against the Chicago Bulls rookie Wednesday after receiving a written apology and cash. Brick is not going to disclose the letter's content, but the sum of money she received was around $100,000. Bob Wolf, Daly's agent, said, "Hopefully the matter is complete and they can go on to lead productive lives." Well, Houston became the 7th team this year to be the nation's #1 college basketball team, and the Cougars will remain that way after their 93-64 drubbing this afternoon of Baylor. #2 Virginia finished the week by crushing Wake Forest. #3 Louisville plays tomorrow at Memphis State. #4 Arkansas, who lost earlier in the week to #1 Houston, travels to Rice tonight. #5 Villanova was crushed in a Big East showdown at Georgia 87-71. #6 UCLA plays Washington tonight. #7 Kentucky was upset by LSU 76-40. #7 Kentucky was, well, we got that. #8 St. John's crushed East Power Pittsburgh 91-73. And #9 North Carolina destroyed Duke 105-81. #10, rounding out the #10, Nevada Las Vegas ended the regular season Thursday night by nipping San Jose State. Ex-Pittsburgh Steeler quarterback Joe Gilliam lost his last chance for pro football stardom Tuesday when the Denver Gold cut him. Dan Ross, the all-pro tight end of the Cincinnati Bengals, has signed a 3-year contract for a reported $1 million to play for the Boston Breakers of the USFL. Super Bowl MVP John Riggins signed a multi-year contract with the Washington Redskins. Riggins, a free agent who earned $330,000 last year, had been courted by the USFL Michigan Panthers. Roberto Duran, who walked away from Sugar Ray Leonard in their welterweight title fight, will fight for the junior middleweight championship May 27th against champ Davey Moore. Ernie Shavers, who has retired before, announced he was quitting boxing again after the 38-year-old boxer was disqualified for low blows against George Chaplin. Jerry Cooney won another exhibition fight against 38-year-old Boone Kirkman. Maybe next time Cooney will fight somebody that has fought at least once in the last 10 years. Jimmy Connors is out and Yvonne Lendl is in as the world's #1 men's tennis player. Maybe this will give Lendl an excuse not to skip Wimbledon this year. The Philadelphia 76ers, who haven't even lost 2 games in a row this season, have become the fastest team ever in NBA to win their first 50 games. NBC has signed a $500 million contract with Major League Baseball for one half of the television rights for 5 years. I would love to see what the other half will cost. Boston Red Sox Carl Yastrzemski, 44 years old, says he will hang up the spikes if he can't contribute to the team. Philadelphia Phillies star pitcher Steve Carlton has agreed to a contract that will make him the highest paid pitcher in baseball. Carlton, the 4-time Cy Young Award winner, signed for $1.15 million for this year. Today my commentary is on the new United States Football League, which starts its football games tomorrow. This new league is going to catch on where other leagues have failed because of the signing of Heisman Trophy winner Herschel Walker, coach George Allen, and a television contract with both ABC and ESPN. The other leagues like the World Football League, who signed Larry Zonka, Mercury Morris, and Jim Kick, but folded in 2 years. The World Hockey League had all-time great Gordie Howe, and the remaining teams merged with the National Hockey League. And last but not least, the American Basketball Association, who had names such as Dr. Julius Erving, Moses Malone, and Dan Issel, folded and the remaining teams merged with the NBA. So why do I feel the USFL is going to survive when all the other teams failed? One reason is because of America. They simply don't get enough football. The USFL gives good and great college players a chance to come right out of college and play pro football instead of sitting behind somebody in the NFL waiting for the chance to prove themselves. Players dismissed from one league because of injury